You are listening to CrossTalk, a safe place to discuss addiction, recovery, harm reduction, and everything in between. Support for this podcast comes from the Kentucky Opioid Response Effort and Advocates of Recovery. Content and production by the team at Turning Point Recovery Community Center. Now, buckle up and get ready for the show.
Welcome everyone to CrossTalk Recovery, the recovery podcast that supports all forms of recovery. I'm Matt Lewis, and I'm here with
Sam Peterson,
Stephen Ox,
Danielle Sams.
Welcome, guys. We had Danielle and Stephen on here today to talk a little bit about trauma and Project Recovery. Danielle is the Project Recovery team lead, and Stephen is one of the crisis counselors over there. I know that that's one thing. Trauma is a huge thing in recovery and mental health and PTSD because it affects different people are affected differently by different situations. Personally, a lot of my trauma was self-induced, the things that I did to myself. I haven't had anything that's really major that affected me, but I'm also really easygoing. I know that it's different for everybody, and this is an important topic. I know that in recovery, a large portion of the people in recovery struggle with mental health issues and trauma in their past. So we wanted to have you guys on to kind of talk about what it is you guys do and trauma in general. Danielle?
Yeah, so Project Recovery is actually a state initiative program that was created to assist people that have been impacted by natural disasters as well as man-made disasters. And so in April of this year, we were actually in active deployment, assisting those individuals that were impacted by the tornado from December 10th, 21.
Yeah, that was I've been out there a bunch, going out to the health department out there, and it's terrible what's happened out there. And I know that's affected a lot of people, displacement, physical injuries, dealing with the aftermath PTSD, and scared of storms in general now. So it's really important what you guys do out there. So you guys have like meetings and stuff. I saw that you have like support meetings, and how are those going? People turning out?
Now, we are working in numerous areas. We are covering the westernmost counties that were impacted by the tornado. So I'm actually the Project Recovery team lead for Mayfield and Graves County. We have Stephen and some other crisis counselors that are working in that area as well. But we also have Thelma Hunter is our team lead for Fulton and Casey and Clinton, the River Counties areas that were impacted. And then Leah Fondahl is the team lead for Marshall County. And so in each of those counties, we have started just a weekly support group for community members, whether they were directly impacted and, say, lost their home or loved ones, but also people that may have worked in those communities that were impacted and now have lost their jobs, such as in Mayfield. One of our biggest plants that was in Mayfield that held a lot of jobs was taken out, and that was the candle factory in Mayfield. And so I've talked with a lot of people that aren't residents of Mayfield or Graves County, but because they've worked there, or maybe they have a friend that, was impacted. They've had a secondary impact and they're interested in coming too, or they've had questions. And so along with the groups, the crisis counselors have gone door to door, as we like to say, boots on the ground, just meeting people where they are in the community. They don't have to go to somewhere like a mental health facility. We can come to them where they are, at their home, as well as we've set up at the Back to School Bash in Grace County that they held back in July. Some other events. We did Camp Noah, assisted with that in Marshall County. Hopefully plans of doing Camp Noah and in other areas that were impacted. And of course, with school starting back up, now we are looking maybe to get into some of the schools and help, assist the youth with some of the impact that they've experienced. Because a lot of people think, well, that was in December. But anybody that has, any mental health or has ever experienced a trauma, you understand it doesn't just go away because, oh, well, we're 8 months, from that, or, it's going to come because, like you brought up, people, anytime there's a severe weather threat, what happens?
Panic.
So, that fear of, is another tornado coming? Or I've actually talked with people that have kind of created that tornado from December 10th, like it's an actual being that can return, because they're like, is it coming back?
Right.
And I'm like, well, that one can't come back because it was weather. So that tornado is gone. Is there a chance that we could have another tornado? Of course. We live in Western Kentucky. We could have a tornado and snow in the same day. Who knows? And just recently in Eastern Kentucky, they've got the floods. And so many people have been impacted, and even people from Mayfield, because of their experience, are like, we've got to help them because we know how that feels to lose your community. And so coming from a mental health background, I know that everybody deals with trauma and difficult situations in different ways. Yeah. You have some people that are like, it was just, natural disaster. It can happen anytime. Where other people are struggling and going back to work, afraid to let their children go back to school. Kids are afraid to go to school when it's raining outside or storming. People are afraid when, the skies are cloudy. We've talked to several people that are just, they get a little bit of that hypervigilance just when they start, seeing the skies turn gray. A lot of people have shared with us difficulty in going to sleep at night, especially like in the last week. How many severe weather threats have we had at nighttime?
Yeah, trauma-informed care is absolutely important. And what are y'all doing is amazing, putting boots on the ground, going out to people. I know I've never dealt with tornado trauma, but trauma in my past, it was something I didn't want to talk about. So for a long time I didn't, and as long as I didn't, it wasn't going anywhere until I faced it. And, did the proper things necessary, therapy, a lot of other things. And sometimes I know for me, I didn't want to admit that something was bothering me that bad. I just wanted to be like, oh, it happened. It's okay. Everything's going to be fine. But on the inside was that I was severely triggered at times from certain situations. And so it's always difficult, I think, but going out to people and meeting them in their home that's so wonderful what y'all are doing. Because it is important that we try to help. I mean, there's no way you can almost go through that kind of devastation and not have some type of trauma from it. Because if you didn't lose somebody, your neighbors did, you lost your home. Those are big, big, big things to happen in a very short period of time. So I'm sure it's just amazing what some of those people have went through.
Yeah, and, I tell people I am not a resident of Graves County. I actually reside in McCracken County, but I work in Mayfield. And, just previous to the tornado, I remember I was leaving work one afternoon, and Mayfield has always been just a quaint little town, so much history there in those buildings, and there was some beautiful older homes, and, it's kind of like playing in my imagination, like, man, I'd love to live in that house right there, that big wraparound porch, man. And I'm a fall seasonal person. So I was like, oh, in my mind thinking, man, if I had that, house, I'd do this and that and pumpkins everywhere. And then on December 11th, when we went into Mayfield, those homes were gone. And the courthouse, it's still there. But structurally, we know that it's going to have to be tore down. The Hall Hotel, City Hall, the the water and electric company, just everything, and I think that is what was so devastating for Mayfield in particular, because it wasn't just homes, it wasn't, rural area, like it went through the middle of the town. And so, as well as other communities.
We'll be right back.
Did you know that recovery from substance use disorder and mental health go hand in hand? That is why the caring and compassionate mental health professionals at Four Rivers Behavioral Health in Paducah are here to help you find your balance. They are proud of you for making the changes necessary to live a healthier life and would love to see you reach your full potential. Give them a call at 270-442-7121 or stop by the downtown location at 425 Broadway in Paducah, Kentucky. Our community is in the process of healing. While we rebuild physically, it's important not to neglect our mental health. Common responses to traumatic events can include grief, anxiety, depression, trouble sleeping, or even fear. These feelings are normal reactions. When these feelings become too hard to manage on your own, consider calling the 24-hour crisis line at 1-800-592-3980. Help is just a call away.
And then like in Marshall County, Cambridge Shores, anybody that's been out on the lake is, seeing those. If you're out on a boat, you look at those beautiful homes. And I remember the first time that I went to Marshall County and went through Cambridge Shores, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine, just that devastation. And one day prior to Project Recovery, Stephen and I were assisting with emergency operations. They had an emergency operation meeting every morning, which started like December 11th. And Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, Red Cross, Emergency Management, state and local, and first responders, everybody went to that meeting. And every day they would give us like a map of areas to walk to, check on people, and, make sure that people were getting their first, immediate needs met, food, shelter, water.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And we were driving, there's a road in Mayfield, Pritchett Road, and we were driving down that. And of course, everybody had pretty much left after the tornado. And we were driving down the road, and I stopped, and he was like, what are you doing? I said, there's driveways and there's no homes. Mm-hmm. Where did the homes go, Stephen? And it was just like, wow, wind did this.
Yeah. I transported a person to Dawson Springs, and his house was standing in the field next to him. Same tornado, it was on the ground forever. It was at least 15 empty concrete pads. I mean, it was just, I was like, man, that's horrible.
Oh, yeah.
And like you said, it's hit so many communities. I happen to be from Muhlenberg County. I was with my mom in Central City and they said there's this huge tornado in Mayfield, and I was worried about people there. I didn't realize it was going to stay on the ground until it reached Muhlenberg County.
I don't think anybody did.
And it just kept going. It was just this huge tornado that just stayed on the ground forever. And I know that in Bremen, where I'm from, the people are dealing with the same stuff that Mayfield's, and that's a small community, but it hit the middle of what Bremen was. It was a little small town, but I mean, it went right straight through the middle of it. And it did Dawson Springs too. That was the first time I'd been to Dawson.
Same as Casey.
Yeah, it's just so widespread devastation that it's affected so many people in this side of the state. It's just it's sad, but it is great work that Kentucky has been doing to try to help people with this stuff.
Yeah.
Project Recovery.
Yeah, I know that. Like you said, Danielle, about meeting their immediate needs was the priority at first, and then trying to deal with what comes after that is so important. I know that, like, in recovery, the meetings really help me. It's being around other people who've lived through the same thing, and that's the same for mental health issues and trauma, and anybody who's been through this, whether it be a flood or tornado. Stephen, have you been boots on the ground, going door to door? What's been your experience with that?
Yeah. So, I remember that, just early in the night, like the news had been telling us about a storm coming, but how many times have we been told those kind of things throughout these years, and that, something's coming, be careful, be mindful, and we never expect something like that's going to happen. So, just from, my personal experience, I was at home and I was with my mother and had her in the closet and stuff like that, and the power went out with a boom. It wasn't just like normal power go out. It was intense, and the just the power you could feel outside, and in the house, the pressure. Danielle called me pretty quick after that had happened to check on me, and I had to get into town because I have a lot of family. Well, first I went to the Fuller Center to check on them, which I had to go the long way around because you couldn't go through town, and to see what was going on over there. Because even the phones, you couldn't even make phone calls very much. Like, you would lose calls, just everything. There was nothing going on. I was trying to get my biggest concern was my sister that was under her house with my niece and her boyfriend. They were stuck, and she was telling my mom, I have about 13% battery. And kind of like you were talking about down in Dawson, how that fella's house was still there, but everything else was gone. My sister's house in her neighborhood, majority of the houses were destroyed, but yet her house had been picked up and sat back down, and there was so much space, like between the outside walls, you could look like that much space and see outside. But just to live in that community and grow up there, and to see how well everybody had come together, the entire community, people from that weren't from around here came and just was willing to lend a hand. For the first few months, you could go to any corner and get a hot meal from somebody cooking. You can get clothes and shelter and things like that. But just to, how many times we go and somebody asks us, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. And that's just the normal thing that comes out of your mouth. I mean, it's just it's like instinct. It just happens. And really, they're not doing too well on the inside. And I can relate big time on not wanting to reach out for help or want to be tough and say that everything's okay. And a lot of these people, they don't want to come up to a mental health center and get help. They don't want to, call these numbers, or they feel like they're, begging, or they're, being a mooch and
don't want to bother someone.
Don't want to bother someone and things like that. And one of the biggest concerns with the guy is he was trapped for hours, hours at the candle factory, hours crunched up like a ball, trapped for hours. And this man feels like any help that this tried to come his way, he feels like he is bothering somebody, and he feels like he's not a beggar. He wants to get it himself. But it's tough. It's tough for people out there when you talk with them, and they're just on guard. They don't want to talk. They don't want to open up. They don't know me. Some people do know me. But I had a lot of family that lived there. We had like 9 people at my mom's house, a 2-bedroom house, because my sister's house was destroyed. Two of my brothers, they had to leave their place with their entire family, and it was I guess what you would say like a bittersweet type deal. It was horrible what had happened, but just to see the God working through everybody in the entire community after that happened. I'm sure people are going to leave Mayfield and never come back, just because, you look everywhere and it's just still, 8 months out and there's still just rubble everywhere.
Yeah, we have a long way to go. The good thing is I try not to drive through downtown Mayfield because I know everybody's working. So I hate to get in somebody's way when they're trying to be productive, and I'm looking. But I did notice the other night that there are new homes being built, and I've sat in some community meetings and heard of the future plans, and I'm like getting excited now. Things will change for every community. Even at Cambridge Shores, I've noticed that there are new homes being built, or they're in the process. And they go to the river counties every week and do their group. And so there is growth and there is rebuild. you know, and I think there's just so much resiliency in all of these communities because they are smaller communities, you know, and so a lot of people, they have these ideas that big city living is cool and there's so much to do, but we do have that treasure of small community living. And I think in a situation to that scale of that December 10th tornado, we have seen so many people coming together and just an outpouring from across the entire country of people sending love and supplies, and it's just a beautiful thing to watch. And you know, in the other meetings when they're talking about rebuild and stuff like this and ideas of things to come, like I'm getting excited because sometimes, you know, as humans, much like we don't like to admit that we aren't having a good day. Mm-hmm. So when somebody says, hey, how you doing? Oh, we're fine. When we know we're not. We are also uncomfortable with change. But so many people have talked about how change, you know, kind of seeing the silver lining, focusing on growth of these communities where so many people have moved off to go live in Nashville or somewhere bigger or even Paducah. But what can we do to bring people here? What can we do to attract people to want to come here? And so I'm getting excited about all this talk and ideas that people are sharing, and I can't wait to see what the future holds in that aspect. But it's going to take time. But like I said, that's trauma.
Right.
And
I know
that just takes time.
It's sad to me, but also, you know, feels good when you see something terrible happen. That's when people come together the most. And I wish that it didn't take something terrible to happen for people to come together like that. But I'm glad that at least they do in those situations. And relating it a little more to recovery, I know that, you know, it's the people saying you don't want to talk about it and things like that. It's that stuff that we don't talk about, that we don't work through, that we don't get off our chest or try to relate to someone else about, that can cause us to use, and because we don't know how to cope with it, to self-medicate, to ignore it, to try and push it down. And so that's why I think it's so important for us to get that, to work through those things, to be honest about what we're dealing with and how we feel, because other people feel the same way. You know, you're not alone in feeling that way and dealing with that, especially when it's something like this or the tornado. So many people have been affected in the exact same way, but other people might just feel like I'm alone in feeling this way, or they're ashamed of feeling this way because someone else close to them doesn't feel that way, you know?
I know with me, I was always like, well, it wasn't that bad for me. Some people had it way worse. Mm-hmm. I don't have any right to feel this way. That's the thought processes that go through my head. It's not about what happened. It's just about what happened to me and how I wasn't dealing with it. And it doesn't. Trauma's different for everybody, so it's just being out there and trying to do better, you know, and trying to help people is so important. And y'all, like I said, y'all doing a great job with boots on the ground, trying to get out there and help people. And and like you said, it's unfortunate it takes something bad for people to come together. I'm just glad people still do come together. I mean, sometimes out of the worst things, some of the most beautiful things happen. You know, it's a way life works sometimes. And I know Mayfield will come back and they'll be strong. You know, they're going to lose some iconic buildings, you know, but the community coming together, I've seen it, you know, and I get to go out there for different reasons through work sometimes, so I see the community coming together, so I know that we're going to make it through it.
We'll be right back.
Hey y'all, did you know it's illegal to own just one guinea pig in Switzerland because they get lonely? Here at Turning Point, we don't want you to ever be lonely either. That's why we are open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Always feel free to come hang with our friendly staff, and don't forget your guinea pig. We're located at 415 Broadway Street, downtown Paducah.
Hello, everybody. You want to know something? My biggest issue with meetings is, despite their name, they are never about me. Here at Turning Point, all of our meetings are for you and about you. We have meetings at least 3 times a day, 7 days a week. We are located at 415 Broadway, Paducah, Kentucky. Call 270-444-3621 for more information.
And like you were saying, survivor's guilt, survivors guilt is a real thing. So many people. Well, I just lost my car, but they lost their home, they lost loved ones. They don't. Maybe their place of employment. It was totally destroyed. But I'm fine.
Right.
Maybe they probably need some help. And we've heard that. From all different directions coming at us. And another thing that I wanted to bring up is a big thing that a lot of people didn't think about. Like I said, my background's in mental health, specializing in substance use disorders. But when this happened, I know for me, I was like, oh no. Kind of like how COVID, the pandemic and the lockdown impacted so many people in addiction recovery. I was like, people will find a way to cope with that trauma.
Yeah.
And so, we have seen so many people that have experienced some setback because of the tornado and loss of, or just looking at their community, just feeling overwhelmed, not knowing what to do. And so that was a big issue. And I don't think that got talked about as much as probably what I was thinking or you were thinking about. But I know we had several conversations when we were out on the street going door to door, like, man, we really need to talk to these people and try to get them some help. And we have some people that have, said that they entered into treatment. They realized that they had made some irrational or poor decisions when they should have reached out for help. They isolated, closed the door, and returned to that old way of coping.
I know we were operating a QRT team along with the Mayfield Police Department prior to the tornado. It is just now we're getting the data again because, the police department was destroyed. It was just absolutely destroyed. And overdose, there was a lot of overdoses. Luckily, there wasn't many overdose fatalities, but the overdoses were definitely up after the tornado. We just recently got that data. So, and I hate to say it, but, we all knew it was going to, the data was going to be, an uptick from, because people are going to find a way to deal with the trauma one way or another. Either they're going to talk to people. If you suffer from substance use disorder, it's a strong likelihood of return to use. If the place where you went to meetings was, the church there that had meetings in it, it didn't make it. One of them did not make it through it.
Say how many churches were destroyed in Mayfield?
It's like a lot, 17 or plus, 17 plus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's like
one of those being a big, place for an area meeting.
Like one of the biggest things, like I'm a person who's in recovery, like recovery, like our kind of recovery, I guess, like substance use. I suffer from substance use disorder. And it was a lot of things. I was trying to fill a void of loneliness. It was a big thing for me. I felt so alone. And now with the recovery from this natural disaster, a lot of these people feel so alone. And like I believe that's one of our biggest goals, to let this community know that they're not alone. And even though I would have my mother, my brothers and sisters and things like that were trying to help me heal or help me stop using, it wasn't enough. So I know there's always more we can do, but that feel of loneliness and despair that these people are feeling, and we just want to let them know that they're not alone. And I'm sure there's more we can do. There's always more we can do, and sometimes we get a little complacent, but that is like the biggest thing I want these people to know is that they're not alone. And some people don't do good in a group setting, like a support group meeting. They don't want to come. They do better one-on-one. They do better on the phone. We hear people that, if it was storming or bad weather outside, we would try to get inside. We know people that run outside. they don't want to be trapped again. They'll go outside and they rather get soaking wet and be able to watch what's coming, or even get, anything worse happen to them, rather than being inside of a structure where they know, where their mind is telling them they're not safe.
And one of the best things about having the weekly support groups is, we do have a healthy group of people that have pretty much been coming since day one, and we've gotten to know them, and we can laugh and cut up with one another now. But aside from addressing just their mental health, so many people that have experienced trauma know that anxiety and that fear of is a big part of that trauma, and a key symptom that a lot of people experience. So now, in recent weeks, we've started kind of changing the direction and focusing more on positive coping skills, learning how to use some grounding when you feel unsafe, or you are watching, the news and see that, weather alert flash through, and recognizing that weather is just a natural part of our daily lives. We can't control it. The only thing that we can do is prepare for and make sure that we have a plan in place, and, healthy communications with family and loved ones. Who are we going to call? Where are we going to go? I always say you can't just have plan A and B. We need A, B, C, and D, and E sometimes even. But on Facebook, a group of people had created a tornado page, and I know I share a lot on there. Throw out, if you're feeling anxious, here's some coping skills to practice, or, make sure you grab a friend, come to our meeting. And so I like being able to have that ability to just work through project recovery and just kind of have that laid back, environment to where we can, talk one-on-one with people, and, pick up the phone and call them, email, or meet them right on their front porch. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So you guys are still doing these support groups. Can you tell us a little bit about where they are, when they are, what all you guys offer? I think you guys do childcare and have interpreters and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, Spanish. Stephen here is our Spanish speaking guru. At the beginning of this, Mayfield has a large Hispanic population, and so we were grateful to grab him and utilize his skills, but also because he is a Mayfield resident. So, so many people would be out walking, and people, hey, Steve-O. I'm like, everybody. But so we have our weekly support group. It's held at the Graves County Baptist Association on Cuba Road. A lot of people are familiar with his house ministries. It's just right past his house. They also have a group at the Casey Methodist Church every
94,
week.
Highway 94, I believe.
And then also at the St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Marshall County every week. And we do, we have numerous crisis counselors there. And so if somebody says, oh, well, I can't make it because I have kids, I always say, bring your kids. Stephen,
we can play kickball with the kids.
Yeah, we have a kickball in the car. We're prepped. We can always find ways to occupy a child's mind. Or if that child is experiencing, some difficulties at all, bring them. We can speak with them one-on-one and try to help them as well if they're not appropriate to sit in the adult group. So we invite anybody and everybody. And I always say, bring a neighbor, grab a friend, anybody that you know, because I know how it is to walk into a group, Oh, that's an uncomfortable feeling. I don't know what this is. I don't know who's in here. I don't know the environment. So bring somebody with you. We are going to be in active deployment through the end of the year. Mm-hmm. They have extended it out, which is a great thing. So we will be making plans for that anniversary date. I know. Hopefully that we'll have something truly awesome to have for this community on that anniversary date in all of the communities. And aside from us, there's also Project Recoveries in the other areas, Dawson Springs, Bowling Green. So if anybody out there is wanting some information, you can go to the Facebook page, Project Recovery Kentucky, and see posts from us and the different groups that are happening throughout West Kentucky that was impacted by the tornadoes.
That's awesome.
Definitely thanks for all the work y'all have done and are doing. It's I know it's tough work, and I know that type of work is just as it can be just as taxing on the people doing it as sometimes the people we're helping. So awesome. We're everybody's real proud of y'all for getting out there and doing the things you do.
And we appreciate y'all for having us here.
Yep.
Yeah, glad you came on. All right, well, we're on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Our audio versions are on podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify. So check us out and stay grateful.
If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction or in recovery and needs guidance, speak with Turning Point's team of peer support specialists by calling 270-444-3621. You are not alone, and we are proof that recovery is possible.